Why did you launch him 80 feet in the air?
You told me to boat flip him!
I didn't tell you to launch him 78 feet in the air.
I flipped him in the boat, didn't I?
Send it to the moon.
I sent it! You said boat flip him!
Oh, yeah.
Do you fish? No. You know, people who don't fish think that fishing is lazy or boring, but it is the complete opposite. There are 100 little decisions to be made, variables to be considered, and you're never quite sure what made the difference. Did I cast too high, too far to the left? Did I reel it in too slow or too fast? Is the lure too shiny or too dull? Do I stay here or should I go over there? And you know it's not luck, but you do not know by how much. Because I am never disappointed out here, because I don't expect anything, because anything is possible. I can be hopeful out here, even in failure. Because I know if I just go out there around that tree, it might be different. Something might be different. Something I do might make a difference.
On my property, you didn't win in my yard.
Wait.
All of you.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight on Monday Night Live? Happy Columbus Day, or whatever holiday you celebrate that got you off work and hopefully on the water. Before we get started here, can I just get a mic check by all my lovely guests listening in here? Mic check, mic check. How are we doing? What did you guys do this weekend? Were you able to fish a tournament? I know the Potomac River had a bunch of stuff canceled because, if it's fall or spring, there's a 90% chance that something will be canceled because of small craft advisory on that place. It's insane how we always schedule so many tournaments. It's usually a good time to fish, especially in the spring, but the amount of small craft advisory warnings that end up happening is it's astonishing. But yeah, here we are again, entering into October. Really, what's interesting to me about this time of year is if you go based off the Bassmaster magazines, which I grew up on, Outlander, October, you're thinking it's going to be the fall time, the fall bite. But really for our area, this is really the transition period from summer to fall. We usually have these Indian summers and everything is pushed back. And this was really confirmed with me last year when I talked to Chris Gorsuch, and he talked about how the fall bite, in his opinion, really runs from November into early December a lot of years. And it's weird because when you get into November, you automatically think it should be a wintertime bite. And as you get into December as well. And generally, depending on where you are in the country, that's correct. But around here, we do get that lag effect, that late fall bite, I think. And 2 years ago, I was fishing Kerr, and we had a tournament, our regional for the ABA scheduled. And it was for the first week of October, I believe. And then we had a hurricane that came through, and then it got pushed to the first week of November. And the bite was absolutely insane. We were just throwing crankbaits on any kind of rocky point, and you were just absolutely smoking them. If we had it in October, the weights would have been way lower, and the difference in water temperature wasn't that much. But I really felt like the fall bite really got settled in there. And with talking to all the guests and the guys that I've had recently on the show, it kind of hits home that, like, yeah, even though the calendar might say October and it should be like 100% to the fall bite, really, because that Indian summer we generally have around here, a lot of times October 1 is just really the start, or maybe you're in the middle of that fall transition. And November or even late October is the primary fall bite for this area. But that's just kind of what I've kind of extrapolated out. What do you guys think down below? A guy that knows how to fish in the fall, he's absolutely taken so much money on the Upper Potomac River, and he decided, you know what, I'm kind of bored with the Upper Potomac. I'm going to go try to fish against Ike and Ellie on the Susquehanna. So let me bring this sucker in here. Dude, thank you so much for coming on in such a short period of time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for inviting me. I'm not going to be able to tell you much. I had a stinky day the second day, so hopefully this will be boring for everybody.
I don't think – I think it's interesting about this, and we talked a little bit before we got on here. This wasn't a tournament like the Fall Classic for MVKBA, where if it was stayed on the same date, this event's coming up, you're going to be fishing on it, you're prepping, you're strategizing. It sounded like this was a little bit more last minute of a decision. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just, I had an opportunity to go, and I just decided, hey, let's try it. I went to the Susquehanna for the Hobie, I think 2 years ago, and had a good time. Didn't do well that tournament, but I just wanted to see what it was like in the fall, knowing that the fall bite for smallmouth was going to be pretty hot. So yeah, it was definitely like, I decided like a week before that I was going to go.
So with that said, I really want to get into your mindset going into this event, because I think this will help out a lot of people that are always afraid to fish a new body of water. And let's face it, the Susquehanna, that's not like the Shenandoah or even the Upper Potomac, I call the mainstem of the Upper Potomac from Harper's Ferry to the Falls. And that's pretty big. The Susquehanna is massive. And so, yeah, what was your thoughts going into it?
Well, Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize it was a west branch until somebody, that it breaks off into, and it's a huge river. I mean, if you go down, if you're in Harrisburg, how it's a pretty wide river. Um, so yeah, I just looked at a Navionics map, and when I went for the first event in the Hobie, I was looking for, spots that had deep pools. So the spot that I picked for the Hobie, I went again this year, just because I was familiar with it. I tried a different section of the river because the river splits, and for the first event, I stayed in the main part of the river, and then this event, because the water was a little bit higher, I was able to cross over to the other side a lot easier. The Hobie event I think it was one of the lowest. It was really low that year. Um, Actually, the second day, I launched at a different spot below the miniature Statue of Liberty, and it was so low that I actually portage my kayak from the launch up to the Statue of Liberty, which is, I don't know, it seems like a quarter mile, but that's
Yeah.
how low it was. I couldn't paddle or use my pedal drive, my Hobie. And two of the guys that I met on the ramp, we just decided to pull our kayaks up. When I drove by it this weekend, the water was much higher. But anyway, yeah, I just picked a spot that looked good, and I went from there.
With that said, going into it, and you went from there, how did you practice and how much time did you have to practice before this event?
For this event, I left Friday morning at 5 o'clock, got there at 8 o'clock. Right, I went straight to the launch, unloaded my boat, and started fishing. So
Gosh.
it was pretty, yeah. It was, let's go fishing. So that's how I approached it.
With that amount of time to practice, what were you trying to accomplish? I mean,
Well,
was it
like just I think smallmouth act the same way pretty much, and so I just I had my same baits that I use on the Potomac, and I was looking for uh, kind of shallower water, running water, and the spot that I found, which I didn't know, I just there was a little creek that ran between the main stem that I was in to the other side, and I took my kayak down that little section, and the section which was brand new to me was perfect in terms of running water. There wasn't a lot of visible structure, but it was water that I like to see. So I have a torpedo, fortunately, so I fished my way up it. Was catching some fish, like 14, 16-inch fish, and then floated back down. Just let the current take me down, and was fan casting. And I was catching fish in the middle of the river. I mean, it was a really good bite on practice day. So I had a lot of hope and a lot of just thinking, hey, if I can do this on Saturday and Sunday, maybe make the top 30. That would be my
Mhm.
goal. So yeah, it was fun.
When you talked about that area, it is a 2-day event. Did you were you hoping to, with limited practice, just pick that area apart completely and then live or die by that both days? Or was it, maybe I start here and then if I do well, go somewhere else, maybe day 2? Like, what was your strategy really?
Yeah, it was just to pick to stick with the same spot. That was my strategy. And because I was catching fish everywhere, I was hoping that if the weather stayed the same, which it didn't. We had 3 different days of weather, and I knew that was going to happen. So I should have pivoted a little bit and kind of looked, but I didn't know the river well enough to make any changes. So I had to stick with what I knew. But practice day, like I said, I probably caught like 80 inches of fish.
Dang.
So the first day, I caught 81, about the same amount. Um, but the first day, it rained. So Friday was a beautiful day, like 80 degrees, I think, very light winds. And then Friday night, it rained pretty hard. I mean, I can hear it, it woke me up in the middle of the night. So I went back to the same section, and the water's a little more stained, but so half of the river was muddy. It was, chocolate brown. You couldn't see through it. But the other half, it hadn't creeped over to the side that I was fishing. So I stayed on the clearer side, and that's where I caught, my fish on Saturday.
Hmm.
Uh, um, I, there was another angler that was fishing the tournament, and he was like, "Man, this river's muddy." Um, but I don't think he realized that it wasn't all muddy. so I, and actually the mountains were on the east side of the river that I was fishing, and the west side of this section, it wasn't that dirty, and that's where the fish were all hanging out. But then on Sunday, I was hoping they would clear up that whole section of the river was muddy. It was 2 feet higher, and even on the main, like further where I launched, it was muddy as there as well. So it was tougher, definitely, especially without I couldn't see any visible structure that I can target where the fish may have been laying. I tried a bridge piling, and I caught like a 12-inch fish there, but that was it.
And before we kind of get into your Saturday blow by blow, as always, guys, the best couple of comments tonight will actually win a gift card to Jake's Bait and Tackle. So fire up those comments as well, whether it's about the Susquehanna River or where this guy cashes all of his checks, the Upper Potomac, which we'll definitely be talking about later on in the show. And we do have one question here from Brandon. What type of kayak were you running?
My RVR, my new Bonafide RVR, it's awesome. I love it. I had the 107 previous to this. And because I use a Torpedo, I like how it's kind of paired with a Torpedo, and it just, it's perfect. In moving water, it performs well. Even if I didn't have a motor, when I'm paddling this kayak in moving water, it just glides through. So those of you who don't, use a motor, it's a great river kayak.
And if I'm not mistaken, you were running a PA 2 years ago or a year ago, correct?
Yeah, well, in the Hobie tournament, you couldn't use a motor, so I had to take my 360, which I was a little nervous of doing, especially when low water conditions, but I banged it up pretty good. But that tournament, you couldn't use a motor, which is why I had to find, the deeper water so that
How does that change your practicing? Because I think that is actually fascinating. Like when you're fishing a pedal only versus a motor, does that change your whole mindset? Like you stated earlier.
Yeah, I mean, with a motor, you just have, you can go a lot, you can, if you have a, bad spot, you can motor up to a different spot pretty quickly. But in your pedal drive, I mean, it's going to take a lot longer. I was definitely more tired that weekend, um, without the motor. I'm 56 years old, and, I, I'd rather use a motor in any, chance I get. And what I noticed also this tournament, everybody has a motor on their kayak now. I mean, if you're competing in a tournament, the advantage of a motor, I think it's definitely, a must-have if you're competing in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean that's a big one there. That's for sure. What was it like? So then Saturday morning you wake up, you launch. Was it crowded in the area that you were at? Did you have it all to yourself initially when you got on the water? What was your feeling and what were the conditions like?
Yeah, it was beautiful that morning. There were probably maybe 6 or 7 other kayakers that launched from there. During the Hobie event, I think there were like 30. It was I was surprised at how many people were at the launch during but this event, it wasn't as many. A couple of local guys that I met who fished the MAKBF. They were at the launch. The second day, it actually dropped. So I think some of the people, they went to different spots, knowing that the river was going to be a little dirtier. But it was a beautiful, Saturday was great. It rained, like I said, it rained that night. And where we launched from, you couldn't tell that it rained. But when I explained to you, when I went to the other side where my holes were, half of the river was muddy. And it's kind of like in the Potomac. Where I fish in the Potomac, you can go to the Maryland side and it's just dirty water. I mean, you're like, what in the world's going on? Then you go to the Virginia side and it's perfectly clear. So it depends on how where the runoff is coming from. I suspected because because there was the mountain range was on that east side, so that runoff maybe a little dirtier for that. But I don't yeah. But anyway, Saturday was perfect. Um,
As the tournament progresses, like, did you go straight to your juice? Because like it's weird with the Susquehanna versus like the Shenandoah or the Potomac. When I've done kayak tournaments on both of those, they are a little bit smaller. And guys, when I say a little bit smaller, I know the anglers are going to be hitting their keyboard like, well, the Potomac's whatever. I'm talking compared to the Susquehanna. Like
Yeah.
those two rivers are smaller, so you have to think about crowds and strategy when you're fishing your area. Did you go just straight to your juice and just try to sit on it, or how did you approach your first spot?
Yeah, like I think I explained last time. I'm always moving in my kayak. I don't
Mm.
drop my anchor unless I have a fish on, just to hold my kayak so I don't float down. 40 yards past. But yeah, I went straight to my spot. I like going upriver, so I went. Started the lowest end and fished up. Um, uh, I caught my biggest was an 18.5, I think, that I caught with my third fish.
Ooh, nice.
And I was catching like 16s and 15s, and the 15s aren't going to win the tournament. You got to catch 17, 18. I think the guy who won, he had, 10 fish in the 19-inch range. I mean, he was catching monsters.
Yeah, he had 95, if I
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
correctly.
Yeah, his name is Josh Trenko. I think he's actually on the Smalley podcast. I think he's
Smallmouth
actually
pot.
yeah. So he went there from Indiana blind. So his experience in smallmouth fishing obviously helped him. But he beat out the regulars. Christine Fisher, Jake Harshman, who lives in Pennsylvania. Mike Iaconelli. So he did a really good job.
But really, I mean, going through your day, when did you think you had something where you had a respectable bag? Was it with that third fish of the day with the 18-incher?
Yeah, I mean, because they're big fish in there. I mean, it's just they're everywhere. And on a good day, if it had not rained and if the weather pattern didn't change, you'd probably have 40, 50 guys in the 170, 180 total range. That's how awesome that river is for smallmouth. Everybody knows how to catch fish. I think that the difference is knowing how to change your strategy when conditions change. And those, it's the same people on the top that win these tournaments. They're really good at pivoting and or finding spots that, regardless of the conditions, they have a spot where officials stay there or be there all the time.
And guys, as always, if you want, I'll tag our last episode that we did together in the episode description as well, so you can go back and you can watch that. Again, I'm going to be going through the comment section. I'll be giving away gift cards to Jake's Bait and Tackle for the best questions answered. Here is one winner we have. His name is Big Mike Fishing Chronicles. Let's pull this up here. I have a question. I just got a Sea Eagle inflatable kayak and want to try to get into tournaments. What advice would you give me?
There's so many videos on YouTube that you can, and definitely rigging up your kayak. You're going to find a lot of great information on YouTube. So I would go there first. A lot of these guys, that I met, had Trey Leach's new inflatable that he made. So Trey Leach, he's a local person from Maryland, but he has an inflatable kayak. And all these guys have these inflatables with torpedoes on them, and but yeah, I'd go to YouTube. I'm not too familiar with inflatables, but I know you'll find a lot on YouTube.
What is one thing that you think everyone should have on their kayak?
God.
One thing.
One thing. Just one thing?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's a good question. You should give yourself a prize for that. Let me see. I don't know.
Motor or anchor?
Yeah, they're both have importance. Motor, anchor, rod holders.
Ooh, I didn't even think of that's a good one. I never even thought of that.
You gotta have. I mean, I'm thinking about all the things that I must have. Every time it's funny because every time I pack my kayak, because I forget things. I actually have a list that I made. And I've stapled to my wall. These are the things you have to make sure you don't forget. Rod holders, my anchor wizard, is
The
great.
anchor wizard.
Yeah, I love that. A crate
Ooh, that's
to
a
keep your
oh
stuff
damn.
in. You gotta have a crate.
You're right. It's hard to limit to one.
A net. A net is important, I think, if you're competing in tournaments. Obviously your catch board. Yeah, I mean all that stuff. And
I,
yeah,
it's interesting to me because I like for my boat guys I talk to, it's like, would you rather have a spot lock or power poles or shallow water anchor? And it's hard because both of those are like there's so many times I need both. Like when I'm fishing the tidal Potomac, I couldn't live without my power poles. I use them so much it annoys people. Just to be able to have complete, I'm just stopped. I'm not moving. I'm not on the trolling motor. I'm
yeah,
anchored. But if I had to pick one, it's so frustrating because it's a system. And I think it's kind of what you're getting at too. It's like there's a system that makes everything work. And I think being
yeah,
able to stop, but then also being able to have the freedom of not getting a cardio workout in, going from spot to spot, like that's
yeah.
important.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me because I guess it's your style of fishing. Like I don't like anchoring. I like constantly moving, and especially in the river. So I don't anchor. Like I said, I don't anchor unless I'm trying to stop myself from floating down the river with as I'm getting a fish off the hook. But yeah, it depends on the style of fishing. So the anchor wizard works great. I think the investment that you have to make on a power pole, I decided to put that in my Torpedo. So
That's
yeah,
probably smart. I'm assuming I have never used the Power Pro Micro before. So, but I'm assuming the Anchor Wizard's way better for a river circumstance than
yeah,
a power
because
pole.
you got to. I mean, if you're having a power pole and you're in moving water, and I mean, you're gonna turn backwards, right?
Mm.
I mean, unless you're in a cove, but I like facing upriver. So I got my Anchor Wizard on the bow of my kayak, and it's just I prefer if I want to sit, I'm facing the correct way versus having it behind my boat and facing downriver.
So we got a bunch of questions that just came in. Sorry, guys. My admin is actually on vacation today, so I have to read and listen. So Big Mike, message me on Facebook or Instagram. You get your gift card. Here's another really interesting question I have right here from Andrew White. I'm paddling currently. How great is a Hobie drive for holding position in current, like on the Susky? I don't have a pedal drive, so
Yeah, well, you're. It's not. I don't think it's that great for holding position. I mean, you can, but not for a long time. I mean, if you're looking to throw it at a at a rock or something, throw your bait for a couple seconds, but you still got to pedal. I mean, you're gonna get tired after some point. So,
so it's relative. Like
yeah,
how long?
yeah, right. How long? Yeah, you're not gonna sit there pet because that's tiring. I mean, pedaling is tiring too. I mean, I don't care how big your muscles are on your legs, but it's definitely tiring.
When I fished the first Battle of Five Lakes this year, and I was on Sleeters, and this is Andrew. Hopefully, this helps. I have a propeller kayak, a pedal kayak, not a Hobie system, and so yeah, I would use the pedals to try to hold me in place. But that was with a slight breeze in a lake. If you're in a river doing that, that's going to be like being on a treadmill.
Right.
And I did that a year ago at the Bronzeback Challenge on the Shenandoah, and I had leg cramps that you wouldn't believe by noon. It sucks. So I think maybe for 20 minutes, maybe that's okay. But yeah, if you're fishing 8 hours, you're on a treadmill basically at that point to hold your position. And that's not even counting the current flow. So yeah, if it is a heavy rain, yeah, that's
Yeah,
gonna be a hell of a workout. Let's see. We have Ronald here. Ronald says, "Did you power fish or use finesse tactics to catch your fish?" That's a good
Ronald,
question.
power. I'm always power fishing. Yeah, I use my go-to bait is the jackhammer and a swim jig, and that's what I threw 80% of the time. And just like in Potomac, it's cast, second retrieve. I mean, right away they smash it.
You brought this up the last time you were on, and you blew my mind, and I had to rethink my whole life when you said you caught him on a swim jig. How did you for the people that haven't heard that episode? How did you How did you stumble on that? Oh, he's giving away the juice, guys.
Dirty
Dirty.
jigs, finesse swim jig. You can pair it with a pack a craw or I love using the Yamamoto double tail. Zoom also has a double tail that actually isn't as soft as the Yamamoto, because the Yamamoto, once the fish hits it, it tears the bait. The Zoom plastic is a little bit firmer, which I like. But it the profile is the same size as the crayfish that you see in the Potomac. That's why I use it. And when you swim it, I mean, it's a perfect bait. And yeah, I'm casting steady retrieve, casting steady retrieve. It's just constantly casting. And sometimes maybe I'll pump it if I'm in deeper water. I'll let it sink a little bit and pump it. But it's power fishing. That's what I prefer.
What is your setup with that? And then I believe with that little sneaky, when you show it on camera, is that a white one? Is that the crappie color that you're using, or the shad color?
Yeah, it's a white. What does it say? It's the Pearl Ghost Shiner. Pearl Ghost Shiner. But so this and their chartreuse is my go-to colors. I'll use brown too, but so I was throwing a chartreuse swim jig and a brown with a kind of reddish jackhammer, and both baits were catching the same amount of fish. When I got tired of using the jackhammer, I throw the chartreuse bait. One of the things that I've noticed is that it's like there's a feeding window that smallmouth that you'll find, especially in the Potomac. Sometimes for a couple hours it'll be dead, and then all of a sudden you'll start catching fish. And it seems like no matter where you cast, just this, I don't know, the feed frenzy just kicks in, and every fish is hungry at the same time. So it doesn't matter what you throw, what color it is. I mean, that's, I think bait companies want you to believe that you have to have 100 colors because they sell more baits. And I'm sure some people, will probably yell at me for that, but I don't think color makes a big difference. I think my philosophy has always been 4 colors: a dark bait, a light bait, a crazy color like chartreuse or pink, and then a natural color like green pumpkin, something that looks like natural forage. And when my color selection is always just those 4 things for every bait. I think I was looking at Tackle Warehouse, and do you know how many colors of the Yum Dinger there are?
Too many.
There's 70 colors.
Good God.
And they have 70 because they'll sell more baits. If if they only sold black and white, then you'd probably buy 4 packages every season. But 70, now you got to buy 30 packages because you think, well, what about this color? I just think colors are overrated.
The only time I don't think colors are overrated are for big swim baits. When you're fishing a trout or something like that, and you do need to match up a little bit closer. So example is if they're stocking rainbow trout, you can't throw a brown trout color. That's a very visual thing. But besides maybe that, I agree with you. It's especially for moving baits. That's what I never understood when people get so dialed into a chatterbait color. And it's like you're throwing a jackhammer on the tidal Potomac with 50-pound braid and you're burning that thing. He ain't seeing shit. I mean, he's just reacting to the profile.
Exactly. And smallmouth, they're just so aggressive. They're not thinking, oh, look at that chartreuse. That's what I want. There's instinctively, there's something moving. I can eat it. I'm gonna eat it now. And I just think that, especially with power fishing, doesn't matter what color you're using.
Did you give topwater any kind of try during the event, or do you just stick with those 2?
Yeah. So on Saturday, the first fish I caught was on a topwater, and it was like the first cast, and then after that, nothing. It was the weirdest thing. I was excited because all right, topwater bite's gonna work, and I know it worked for some people, but where I was, I threw my go-to. It's a Owner Ziggy, I think it's called an Owner. It's a great smallmouth bait, I think. But I didn't catch anything after that, so I went back to the jackhammer and my swim jig.
I love how simple you keep it. I wish I could do that without bringing my whole Bass Pro Shop with
Yeah,
me.
I don't like because typically, even on a great day, I mean, you're going to go to the baits that you're confident with. And I don't like bringing way too much tackle. I think some people, you just overthink it. I mean, I had five. Typically, I'll carry like 9 rods, but for this tournament, I carried 5 in my kayak because knowing I'm just going to use.
Wow.
Yeah, because
That's
I
not
just knew that these are the baits I'm going to use. Um, and it's just your confidence in the bait.
Gerald Swindle had a great quote about that. It was a week ago. This has stuck with me, but it was like, if you feel you got to fear the guy that only has one rod on the boat because he's either completely out in left field or he is so dialed he's going to win. You always fear the guy that just with one rod, and that is, it limits your mindset if you know exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's complicated enough, and I just think people, there was one guy, he had like 20 rods in his kayak. I'm like, oh my god. I just, first of all, I'm dumb enough to lose, not forget what I brought, and lose a rod in the river. I don't want to do that. So, keeping it simple is kind of my philosophy.
Do you think those are the guys that did the crossover? Because I've wondered this with like, there's so many people that did the boating thing and they're moving over to kayaking. I could be wrong about this. It's just left field. Are the guys that have like 50 rods in their kayak, are those guys that are making the transition from bass boats to kayaks? Because if I look at some of the Nolan brothers or Christine, they don't have like 30 rods hanging off their boat, but
Mhm,
I would consider them more pure kayak people.
mhm.
You think there's some kind of truth to that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know how many of these guys are, you know, boat owners as well. There might be, I went well on a side thing. I don't know how these guys keep their kayak on the deck of their boat. I would break every rod. You know how they lay in the front of the boat, and I watched the
Mhm.
MLF. How do they not step on their rods? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they bring that many because they break them a lot. I don't know.
I break one a year,
Do you?
probably. I break one
To
eye
be
tip a
honest,
year
I don't.
because
I
it's
never
either
understood.
it's either me or it's my co-angler or somebody else that grabs the net and they run up to the
Yeah,
front.
yeah. They stop when they step on it.
And honestly, kayak fishing, and I've said this ad nauseum, like I've gotten I've gotten better as a fisherman since I kayak fish. And this is something Nolan Miner said. I think it was like on the first podcast I ever did. And he said, like, when I made the switch, I truly appreciated how many fish were in an area. But when I was in a boat, just because you have the big motor doesn't mean you should use it. And
Mhm.
my God, is that so true? When you get a 250 or whatever you have, your brain almost tells you you have to move because you have it.
Right.
But if you're in a kayak, whether you have a Torpedo or not, you can't hit every point in Lake Anna. You
No.
have to figure out an area. And I truly think it makes you a better fisherman.
Yeah, I mean, plus you can access in a kayak spots that you're never going to get in a boat. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's so many advantages of a kayak. I just love it. Just you're in your little office basically, and yeah, it's. I think, like I said last time, I think in the podcast, I'm catching bigger fish out of my kayak than I was out of my jet boat. You
And
know,
we're going to be getting into this. I want to get into your MVKVA season as well, since you did qualify for Lake Anna. So I want to get into that, but we got to bang out some of these questions again. Andrew White, and where are you? Big Mike Fishing Chronicle. You guys both won gift cards to Jake's Bait and Tackle. Please message me on Instagram or Facebook, or if you want to email me, you can, and I'll make sure I get those to you. And let's see. And Curtis Cole, and you have broken more than one rod this year. I know. Well, okay. To be fair, Curtis, the other rod was my wife. And that's 100% her fault because she set the hook into a tree. So that you don't win a gift card for that, but I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. Rusty Lane has a good question. And how does this tournament work? Can you put in anywhere, or is there spots everyone can go to? And I believe he's talking about Bassmaster or Hobie as well. And that's what's
yeah,
so cool about kayak tournaments.
yeah, it has to be from a public launch, so you can't just if you live on the Susquehanna, you can't just launch out of your backyard. So it has to be a public launch, whether it's pay or free. And the Susquehanna is littered with launches everywhere on both sides of the river. Um, but yeah, actually most tournaments are public launch is where you can go, you know, get your kayak out from.
And then we got another one here. Oh, here's another good one too. Let's see. Here it goes. So we got another one. Curtis, club tourney yesterday at Goldsboro. Not a single fish on power fishing. All on Ned hula stick. Also caught a bunch of small largemouth. So again, I think what's interesting about this is how big the Susquehanna is. Different areas probably fish differently, which makes that place so freaking unique.
Is Goldsboro? Is that the Susquehanna too? That's
yes. That's lower.
Lower, right?
Yeah, I think that's the damned area, if I'm not mistaken. Oh my goodness, Steve Chaconis just entered the chant.
Steve,
when he says, when are you coming to visit?
When are you gonna invite me? I know he says it is no. Is this your place in West Virginia? Ask him that.
Is this your place in West Virginia, boss? And we're gonna be waiting for that. And then Curtis says it was 3 Mile Island.
So the smallmouth where I was fishing, these fish were in literally. Sorry, that's my clock. 2 feet of water.
Wow.
I mean, I couldn't. I mean, I guess I believe it, but these smallmouth are in shallow water. So obviously, you got a smaller area where you're fishing. So the power fishing is the way to go. These fish are looking for, their food to flow down river. Ned rig might have worked, but I think just to reach more spots and to get more, what do you call it? Just to reach more spots, power fishing is the way to go, especially with the shallow water.
I also think it's your DNA. I had the guy on that won the New River Hobie event, and he talked about when he went to the New River, he thought the New River was kind of hoping he was hoping he was going to fish like the Susquehanna, which is a power fish place, and that's what he's used to. And he gets the New, and he's like, "Holy shit, that's not what this is going to do at all." and basically, the New River set up like the Shenandoah or the Upper Potomac, where I think you can dink and dunk a little bit more of the tubes, the Ned rigs, the old school classic smallmouth stuff. And what was interesting about that conversation is how much the Susquehanna sets up for power fishermen, basically, how you can throw chatterbaits there and things like that, largemouth tackle, and you can have success. You don't have to relearn the tube or the Ned rig to be successful there.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Now, I want to pivot a little bit here to NVKBA. So when I first met you, you were this vaunted legend of the Upper Potomac, and then you seemed like you ventured out a little bit, because I saw your name pop up in the Rappahannock, and I was like, you are way far from home. What made you decide to fish the series this year, or is this something that you always do?
Yeah, I've done it. This is my 3rd year, I think. So, Mike Ortega runs a awesome tournament series, and it's every year it's growing. I think I might be wrong, but 60 plus anglers at every event. That's just awesome. I think I was in AOI points. I was like maybe 15th. I couldn't fish the last event because I had a golf tournament that weekend, and so my points didn't go up. But and I missed it this year because of the Susquehanna, because they had to reschedule to do the weather. I think 2 weeks ago they had the 40 mile per hour wind gusts in Lake Anna. Yeah, I mean, I love the diverse fishing that we do in NVKBA. Actually, my bronzeback challenge, I'm going to talk to them about probably incorporating, having them take over the DMV bronzeback challenge and kind of having them run that, and we'll figure out how we're going to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's a great organization. It's run well, professional, great anglers in that group. I mean, there's some really good sticks in our group. I mean, even better smallmouth anglers than I am. Greg Oakes, Matt Chapman, James Coleman, all these guys are really good smallmouth anglers.
It's interesting with that because, and then we're going to be talking about the bronzeback challenge here, guys, shortly. I want to get through this thought process here. When you do the bronzeback challenge and you have 3 rivers, what's interesting to me the last couple of years that I've been a part of it and going through the stats, people don't like to venture onto the Upper Potomac, which I think gives you such a distinct advantage. In years past, it really was the Rappahannock, but now the Shenandoah is starting to show out again. You have more winners coming from there, but still, it seems like people are nervous. Like they don't want to fish the Upper Potomac. There's just not a lot of contestants that choose that, and that to me is just so fascinating. Where it seems like you get the water to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only familiar with the section, where I fish, in the bordering Maryland, Virginia, above Great Falls. But yeah, it's huge. I mean, so right now, currently, most anglers are fishing the Potomac, Upper Potomac. And there are a couple guys who are fishing the Shenandoah. Nobody's fishing the Rap. I'm not too familiar with the Rappahannock. But yeah, I think this year the fishing's been pretty good. I mean, July obviously, we had really low, or August, the low water conditions, and but the water's still kind of low now. But the fishing's still pretty good. These guys are catching 90-inch bags. The guys who are leading. We don't have a big group. I mean, I have like 10 guys competing right now. But yeah, it's it depends on obviously the weather has a lot to do with dictating if the river's blown out, or if we don't have any rain and it's too low. So I think that's the problem.
90 inches though. When you look at like day one on the Susky and it took 96, you're saying that the Upper Potomac is kind of getting close to that Susky like height for a winter, which is it's impressive. I'm sorry, like the way the Shenandoah and the Upper Potomac have bounced back, no one is talking about this, like how cool this is from where they've come from,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this like I think this is this summer was for me. I've caught the most 19-inch smallmouth out of Potomac, me personally. And yeah, and the guys who are competing in my tournament, they're 19 inches, pretty regular, big fish size. In a couple of years they're going to be 20 inches. So I suspect that it's been getting bigger. So I was catching mainly 18-inch fish 5 years ago, and then now I'm catching a lot of 19. So these fish are getting bigger.
I think we're getting close to like having that special year on that river, and we're entering it now, but it's going to get that much better. I have Jeff Green, Shallow Water Fishing Adventures, on all the time, and we talk about it like when is a 6-7 pounder going to pop off the Upper Potomac, and we keep thinking like next 5-6 years it's going to happen. You're going to see that big stud come because it's building towards that, which is so cool to watch it happen.
Yeah.
To segue, here's a hell of a segue. Going from smallmouth waters to seeing you on I'll say this again, the tidal Potomac and Rappahannock. When you got to those events, are you just throwing chatterbait swim jig? Like how?
Sometimes the same baits, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'll throw a crankbait too. So actually, the tidal Potomac, Steve Chaconis, so I never really fished it that much, because I'm mainly an Upper Potomac guy. So a buddy of mine bought me a guided trip with Steve. That's the first time I met him. So that's how we developed our friendship. And so he took me to his spot in the tidal Potomac, and had a great day that day. And so it kind of opened a new world for me. For the past couple of years, I fished out of Mattawoman Creek. And it's just especially in the summertime with all the the what do you call it, the Paddock, what that plant is, but
Spatterdock,
Spatterdock,
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I caught day one on one that 2-3 years ago. I had 3 18-inch largemouth. Then I'm always choking on the day two. So day two I skunk it up. But I'm still learning, it's just like this area has just such diverse options of fishing. You got largemouth in the lower Potomac, smallmouth upper Potomac, and all these little lakes, in Fredericksburg. It's just great fishing.
How did you approach the Battle of the 5 Lake tournaments? like, what is your experience on those bodies of water? Because I mean, you finished high in the points. So, what is your strategy? I mean, not even just the Battle of Five Lakes. Like, what is your strategy when you get off smallmouth water?
Um, yeah, it's just I kind of use, like I said, I go my go-to bait is going to be my my swim jig and chatterbait. You know, fish the the banks and looking for structure, and then I like drop shotting if I'm finesse fishing in deeper water. Um, but again, I'm still learning. I mean, it's I'm not a big crankbait fisherman. I got to learn how to be better at that, especially deep water cranking. Uh, but top water in the summertime, it's pretty much it's pretty simple. You know, Senkos. You got a Senko rod rigged up. I got a buzzbait rod. So I'm carrying more rods when I'm largemouth bass fishing. Smallmouth bass fishing, I got a smaller arsenal that I'm pretty confident with.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. And I think do you think it comes down to, like you said, confidence, just because smallmouth, that's your jam? So you're kind of confident with
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
doing.
I'm more familiar with it, but also when you're largemouth fishing, you're fishing different depths of water. You know,
Okay.
smallmouth, I'm just fishing 4 feet of water, so there's some baits that I'm limited to. With
Mhm.
largemouth fishing, you can be fishing, a 2 foot, cove, and then or a 30 foot, drop off. So you got to use different baits. So I think that's why, I carry more rods in a largemouth tournament.
Guys, as always, if you could like and subscribe, that really help us out in the algorithm here. Again, I'm giving away gift cards to Jake's Bait and Tackle. Best questions are going to win some here. We had a couple of winners earlier today: Andrew White, Ronald Churchley, Big Mike Fishing Chronicles. I'm going to give away one more gift card to a listener. Just drop a question and we'll get that out to you here. What is one tournament this year that you wish you could have back? It's not the Susquehanna one, that doesn't count, but from the NVKBA season.
The tidal Potomac.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, well, if you remember that weekend, it was there were some storms that came in. So on day two, I launched my kayak, and where I was, this big lightning, bolt, it was probably like, maybe 2 miles away, but it was loud enough where I was like, I'm not fishing. So I turned back around, got my kayak back on my car, and I went home. So I was surprised they kept fishing that day, but I
So
didn't. I mean, I'm not. I like myself too much to get struck by lightning in a river.
you're
Uh,
smarter than me because
did
I
you
was
see that?
I was fishing the Hagerstown Bassmasters out of Pohick Bay that day.
Oh
And
wow!
I was gonna make the run to Aquia, and I was getting out to the mouth of Pohick, and there was this lightning crack, and I told the dudes, like, "We're just gonna fish Pohick. We're not no way in hell we're doing this." Because some guys blasted off, and more power to them, but I'm like, "Screw this. I got 10-foot power poles in the back. We're gonna stay close to the ramp and hope this thing blows away." And we actually managed a 4th place, but I was shocked that we still, like, and there was kayaks around me too that launched
Yeah, I
for
mean,
the
all those guys were day two of the KBF, and
yeah.
they kept fishing, and I'm like, I mean, yeah,
Mm-mm.
I don't think it's very safe to be in water when it's lightning strikes, so it's
Mm.
not very smart. So I don't know. I'm glad they're safe, but
How did
um,
Lake Anna do for you? The early one.
I don't remember what I did to do. Yeah, I had 4 fish that day, I think, and I mean, Lake Anna fish are what, 15, 16 inches.
Yeah.
I think I was like in 23rd place or something like that. I had a 5th fish, but it jumped off. And had I caught the 5th fish, I think I would have been like maybe 12th. So the kick, getting 5 fish is important in a tournament. Um,
What's your thought with Lake Anna? Like your love
I,
hate with the place?
I hate it. It's next to Burke Lake. It's yeah, it's the I don't like it at all. But every year they have it, I have to go. So.
What is it about it that's your kryptonite, you feel like?
Well, it's just such a big place. And I don't have a lot of time to pre-fish,
Mm.
so I gotta go there. And so where I go, I've been to Lake Canada 3 times now, and it's the same area that I went from the first day. Luckily, I have a buddy of mine who lives on it, so he lets me stay at his house. But so it's the only place that I know, and they're fishing. I think one year, one of the guys, I think last year, the guy who won Lake Anna launched from the same spot, where I launched from. So it's yeah, it's just, again, just one of those things where I pick a spot and I got to figure it out.
No, I mean that's sometimes what you just got to do. That place is hard, especially if you don't have like forward facing sonar and waypoints, because there is more grass in there now, but if it's not a dock bite there, it's brush piles, which means you need to just graph and get your waypoints together.
Mhm.
Let's get through here and get a couple more of these questions done. Let me see right here. Paddle, paddle, paddle. How does the term work? Can you already answer that one? Let's see. Here's another one from Brandon. When are you going to fish these tournaments, Thomas? So I picked up a little bit of a side hustle doing some other stuff to make some more money. So hopefully I will save that up. That way I can fish some of these tournaments next year. I just got to pimp out my kayak a little bit more. I don't have the calf muscles to pedal all the time. So I'm trying to save up for a motor to be a little bit more competitive, because good God, these river tournaments with pedaling, I can't, guys. It's miserable. It sucks. And you need to be competitive. You need forward facing sonar, or you need a torpedo or something like that on your boat. And I know I'm going to get killed for this, but there's this one guy one time that I get that, but generically speaking, you need one of the two to be consistently successful. So, but the last thing I really wanted to end the show on was, and we already talked about it a little bit, but pimping out your bronze back challenge. Is it still going on? If people want to fish it this year, what do they do?
Yeah, we have our last event that's going on right now, and then in November we'll have our main event. And again, like I said, there aren't many anglers that are competing in it right now. Next year, hopefully, we'll, with NBKBA's help, we'll develop it and have a, I'm not sure what Mike is thinking, but maybe a secondary tournament so people can compete. Right now is between, like you said, between now and November, it's great smallmouth fishing, and I wish we had more tournaments going on, this time of the year. Right? The NBKBA event, ended October 6th, and now we're done. But there are 2 good months of fishing left, so hopefully we can, just broaden it a little bit and allow people to fish through up until maybe Thanksgiving. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And this is something I've been trying to promote on my channel, which is, I think the times I really like to go out on the river, honestly, and I'm maybe more of the Jeff Little mindset, between now and like February, when there's no one on the water, and every time you stick one, it's good. You're not catching 6 inchers anymore. It's all good ones. And if you really want a chance of a lifetime to go out, guys, get a guide, or make sure you dress appropriately if you go out on your own, be safe. But we're entering that big dog time when you could catch a smallmouth of a lifetime out of any river you pick from. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I saw Jeff at the tournament, and he's got a great channel, and especially with winter fishing, and that's what he'll go out in 30-degree weather, and catch some big fish. So definitely, if you want to learn about that, go to his channel.
What are some of your goals for next year or going in the future? Do you want to fish the whole Hobie series or the Bassmaster series, or you have any aspects for that?
I don't think I'll get permission from the wife to do that. So I want to stick with NBKBA. Whenever there's a Susquehanna event with the bigger events, I definitely want to go to those. But sticking locals is it's more my cup of tea. I went in 2018. I went to the Kentucky Lake, the KBF National Championship, when they had 800 competitors. That was a 13-hour drive, and that was fun. But that experience, being especially going that far to a place where you don't really know anything about the water, that took a lot out of me. I think I went 2 days. I had 2 days of pre-fishing, but if it's a smallmouth event, I like to do the New River maybe once to try that out. The last time I was there was 25 years ago, I think. But the Susquehanna is, as long as I can my body can handle it, I'll definitely want to keep going to those. But and local NVKBA and maybe MAKBF do a couple of their events.
Sir, Chun, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Again, guys, link in the episode description, everything we talked about. If you want to go hop into the Bronze Back Challenge, I just linked that as well. You can click on that. Reach out to any of us, me, or Mike, NVKBA. Everyone's information will be in the episode description. Chun, you got any closing thoughts?
No, thank you, Thomas. You do a great job. I mean, I love your show. I've been learning a lot. So hopefully, when I continue watching, I'll do better in these tournaments. So.
Well, I'm afraid if that happens, because you'll be taking all of our money for years to come.
Oh, please.
Guys, we're going to be ending here, but you can keep on watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye. And